Sound check one. Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee meeting, sound check one. May 13th, 2022. We are live.
Good morning, everyone. I would like to call this meeting of our Hamilton Municipal Heritage Committee to order. Please be advised that our meetings are webcast live by the City of Hamilton and temporarily archived on the city's website. Presentations and reports considered at this meeting are available on the city's website, and members of the public can contact the clerk's office to acquire documents in an alternative format. It is the role of an advisory committee to the City of Hamilton Council that we must act in accordance with not only provincial legislation, but also the city's policies for codes of conduct. We shall maintain decorum during our proceedings. We shall act with honesty and integrity. We shall maintain an open and cooperative atmosphere. And although we may differ in opinion, we will be respectful to all. So as we move on to our roll call, I will call out the names of our members. And as I do that, if you can just recognize yourself so that Lorraine can make sure that we have the updated attendance. Councillor Pearson.
Present. Good morning.
Good morning. David Beeland.
Present.
Janice Brown. We see Janice. She's there. Karen Burke.
Present.
Graham Carroll.
Present.
Charles Dimitri.
Present.
Lynn Lundstead. Present. Robin McKee.
Here.
Timothy Ritchie. And Will Rosart. Right. Madam Clerk, are there any changes to the agenda today?
Yes, Madam Chair. Under consent, we have item 7.2, the Inventory and Research Working Group meeting notes of March 28th, 2022. And under 7.3, we have heritage permit applications, delegated approvals, 7.3A and B for 127 Houston and 256, 258 McNabb Street. And if I may add that item 10.1, which is a discussion item, we also have a presentation from the heritage consultants as well.
Thank you, Lorraine. May I have a mover and a seconder on the motion to approve the agenda as amended?
I see Lynn and I see Janice.
And is there anyone opposed to the approval of the agenda as amended? Seeing none, that item is carried. Are there any declarations of interest today? Seeing none, we move on to our approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. So we have before us the minutes from April 21st, 2022. May I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
I see Karen and I see Graham.
Thank you. And is there anyone opposed to the approval? Seeing none, that item is carried. Under Communications 5.1, we have correspondence to the Provincial Register respecting heritage designation under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act for 289 Dundas Street East, 292 Dundas Street East, 298 Dundas Street East, 1 Main Street North, 134 Main Street South, and 8 Margaret Street in Flamborough. Is there any discussion or any questions in regards to this item? If not, may I have a motion to receive?
I see Lynn and I see Chuck.
And we will now vote. Is there anyone opposed to receiving? Seeing none, that item is carried. So under consent items, we have several today to be received. Are there any questions in regards to those items for 7.1, 7.2, or 7.3? So we have our Heritage Permit Review Subcommittee meeting minutes of March 15th, Inventory and Research Working Group meeting notes of March 28th, Heritage Permit Applications Delegated Approvals for 127 Houston Street North and 256 to 258 McNabb Street North. Are there any questions? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive 7.1 to 7.3?
I see Chuck and I see Graham.
Okay. And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? And Lorraine, just before I move forward, Councillor Pearson, is she wishing to? Oh, she's not on the call. Okay. So seeing none opposed, that item is carried. Okay. Moving on to our public hearing and delegations, we will move on to our delegate. Before we begin, I will remind the delegate that we have 5 minutes for their presentation. And I'd also like to remind members when they're addressing the delegates, if it's not a time to engage in debate. So please ask any questions for the purpose of providing clarification only. So I'd like to welcome Alicia McCrecky. Alicia.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, very good. Welcome. So you can go ahead with your presentation.
Okay. It's a little bit longer than 5 minutes. May I request for a slightly longer presentation?
Sure. So the request has been made. Can I have a mover and a seconder just to extend the presentation?
Okay.
I see Karen and I see Robin.
Thank you, everyone. And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item's carried. So go.
Okay.
Feel free. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm just going back to the beginning here. Can everyone see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. So I'm going to introduce you to the work that I've been doing in Hamilton over the past year. It's funded by the Canada Council for the Arts, and it's been under production for about 8 months now. So the overview is pretty clear. It's a project that addresses issues of climate in Hamilton through trees. The title of the work is Building Conservation Networks. And the work is really positioned as an artwork and an urban design project that tries to focus the social and cultural landscape. And attached to this project is a publication that is oriented towards framing community stories. So the big frame for this project is really about finding ways to approach issues of climate from a small scale perspective that can have a large impact. The title of the work, Building Conservation Networks, has grown out of research that I've developed on boundaries in art and design. So the scope of the project includes documentation, publication, exhibition, intervention, and then a stewardship program. So the background work for this project looks at where boundaries lie in urban space between forest systems and urban systems, and whether or not those boundaries are ones that are drawn or whether or not they can be renegotiated. So the project really started by looking at where conservation boundaries lie in relationship to urban systems in Hamilton, and then also how that relates to Six Nations relationships between forested space and urban space. Natural systems is a really important part of this work. So it began really as a way of looking for water and where water happens in Hamilton and how water can serve as a kind of disruption or disruptor to our understanding of where natural systems are and how they're functioning. So the first thing that I did in this project was to redraw the map of Hamilton. So many times we see maps that look at conservation land that clip out downtown Hamilton and don't include the city itself as like a conservation system. So what was important to me in this work from day one was redrawing this and reorienting the view so that we can begin to see Hamilton as a city that's actually surrounded by a ring of conservation networks. And within this narrative, I chose trees as the anchor for trying to talk about natural systems in a way that is personable so people can really understand this thing is larger than life, this climate issue that seems a bit unsolvable. So the basis of the work conceptually is about building conservation networks through the city rather than relying on conservation lands alone to carry the weight of reforestation or climate sinks or regreening a city that is growing. This work is tied into the urban forest strategy, and I've been in coordination and in contact with Kathy plots from the early stages of the project. So this is a map of the ward boundaries based on the urban forest strategy that I have been using as a precedent to move forward with the work. And also to start, this is a conceptual map, to start looking at where some of these trees that I'm finding as part of this work lie within the urban forest strategy. So the issues at stake in this work are how urban trees are being impacted by infrastructure, where urban deforestation is taking place, and then what are the next steps for future planning. So one of the advantages of situating this project as an artwork is that it allows me to also build empathy around trees as a way to keep people into larger issues of climate. I'm doing that through a series of photographs that I'm taking as I'm documenting each of the heritage trees that I'm finding in Hamilton. So this is an example of a northern red oak that's in a park on Hamilton Mountain. Here's a red maple, also on the Hamilton Mountain, and a sugar maple, also on the Hamilton Mountain, that is well over 200 years old and not in very good shape. So this process of documentation through the arts and through engagement and talking to people in the community is helping in terms of establishing criteria for a baseline for how to establish a heritage tree. So what I'm looking at in my project is pre-settlement trees that predate the city of Hamilton, so anything over 150 years, urban trees that are growing outside of conservation land, and trees that have a strong legacy within the community. Within that, so this larger kind of art and design frame has given me a sense of parameters that are starting to emerge in terms of where some of these trees are and what their relationships are. So this is a living atlas. It's a working map. It's not finished yet. You can see that in Ancaster and Dundas, there aren't as many trees as one would expect. But what is really emerging from this project is that our conceptions of where conservation land lie and where trees are, based on the earlier maps I showed about this idea of boundaries, is not always where they actually are growing. The Hamilton Mountain has considerably more trees than I expected to find. So for this project, I've established a framework of 3 zones in order to establish some parameters for the work. The zones are private, public, and conservation land. So these are the 3 areas that I'm looking for in terms of where trees are. And then within that typology, within public space, I'm looking at parks and schools, and private is residential, conservation land is protected landscapes. And what is emerging from the project is that a large number of the trees, heritage trees in Hamilton, are actually on private property. So not very many of them are in public space. And the data is starting to show some of the ratios in terms of concentration. You can see that near Shadow Park, there are a lot of trees that predate the city of Hamilton in relation to the 27 noted on public property. So as patterns and ecological systems, well, as I'm taking an ecological systems approach to this project, the patterns of remnant forests are starting to emerge as pretty remarkable islands of existing conservation kind of oases throughout the city. And I'm looking at where the natural systems in terms of water flow are intersecting with some of these remnant forest patches to see if there's a correlation. And within that, also looking at these distinctions that I've established, how does that relate to residential space, to park space, and to conservation land? This is important because I'm finding that a lot of these islands of remnant forests have unique identities. So based on the ecology of our region, the historical ecology of our region, each of these zones I'm finding are not the same. So some of them have a higher concentration of sugar maples, others have a higher concentration of bur oaks, and others have predominantly hickory-based constitution. And this is really important because it keys us into not only our shared natural heritage in terms of culture and identity, but also ideal sites for an intervention or new restoration programs throughout the city. So within public space, that could look like restored forest or a teaching forest, and in private, space that could potentially look like a community forest. And then further breaking this down, what opportunities are there in each of these zones? Public restoration projects, stormwater, woodland restoration, potentially public art, and shared community spaces. So as part of this work, I'm right in the middle right now of developing a digital publication. So this can be, so it can be shared. And that will look like a digital space where people can interact with some of these systems and some of these trees to understand where they are and what their characteristics are, so communities can use this information in order to build a community forest or have events or whatnot. And publication, I'm hoping, will be out at the end of the month. But one thing that's really emerged through this work is how much people in Hamilton love the trees in their neighborhoods, and how important it is for people to share these stories. So this is also going to be an important part of the publication and the database. And the purpose of that is to begin to build a basis for a deeper understanding of heritage landscapes and what they are, potentially positioning heritage trees, monument trees, as a new type of monument, and that heritage tree programs can be built around. So, and of course, the intent for this work, this project, is that this foundation, this groundwork, will lead to new types of conservation initiatives. So the primary takeaways from this work so far are that some of the oldest trees in Hamilton are in backyards. In forests, trees support their offspring and form partnerships with those species to share nutrients. In contrast, the average age for an urban street tree is 7 years. So private stewardship is making a considerable difference. And then within the larger frame of climate and issues of climate and how Hamilton could potentially become an eco-city as it begins to grow, monument trees are living monuments to time and our shared natural heritage. They are the ecological and social anchors of the urban forest. Monument trees that have lived for 2 centuries do the work of 10 or more young trees to mitigate climate change. And then lastly, if restoration efforts focus tree planting on bolstering remnant forests, cities have a better chance of achieving climate resilience. And so just an image kind of speaking to that point, like trees are part of natural systems, and they work to support the systems that are always moving under the city, such as water and atmospheric pressure all the time. Anyways, they're mediators between the sky and the ground. And then future planning for this project includes an exhibition and then developing the intervention programs, which I'm just moving into now. So the exhibition is titled Monument Trees, and the intervention includes public art and potential restoration programs. One thing that we're doing right now with community members to try to recognize some of the people who are doing such a great job taking care of these trees is to have a tour to begin to introduce the public to some of these trees that are not in public space. And the digital publication date hopefully will be this month. Thank you. Thank you very much. That's the presentation.
Thank you, Leisha. That is a wonderful project. It's really great initiatives that you've been working on. That's a lot of work's been put into that. Maybe what we'll do is if we have anyone that would like to ask any questions, if I could, I see Janice's hand. Maybe Leisha, if you could stop sharing for a second, and we'll get a look at who may want to ask some questions.
How do I stop sharing?
Alicia, at the bottom of your WebEx screen, there you go. You've done it.
Yeah, thank you.
Perfect. So we have Janice. Is there anyone else that would like to be added to the speakers list? We have Robin. So go ahead, Janice. Oh, Janice, you're on mute.
Thank you. And I was just asking, is it Lesha or Leisha?
It's Lesha. Yeah, thanks.
Okay, because I know another Lesha.
Yeah.
So I don't know, maybe you're related. It's interesting because it's the same last name or somehow. Anyway, this was wonderful. I love this presentation. And I'm in the Durand, and that's a very old neighborhood, and we are situated on the Iroquois. And I noticed you had a lot of oak trees and maple trees and hicks trees, sycamores. in my neighborhood, beaches are prevalent, and I know of two giant beaches that one is in a backyard and one is half on private property and half, I think, on city property because I think it's growing through the fence. And two outstanding specimens. I have no idea how old they are, but they are absolutely huge. I can tell you the street.
Okay,
Streets. Okay.
great.
Yes. One is at the corner of Herkimer and Park.
Okay,
Okay. And it is on the west side, southwest side of a private home in the backyard. The other is at the corner of Jackson and Caroline across from Pinehurst, 163 Jackson Street West. And that's the one that I don't know if it's on city property, or private. But the thing that upsets me about that one is that whoever has it, they're letting stuff grow out of the bark, sprouting, which I think is really inappropriate because that's not how the tree actually grows. And so that was a concern. And then the only other thing, there's a large piece of property in the Durand neighborhood, and it's private, but somebody told me it was the last remaining undeveloped piece of property in the Durand. And I just wonder what is in that private property. And it's located on Markland between Bay Street and, okay, oh my gosh, Bay and what's the next? I'm going Bay and Park, I guess.
okay.
Yep. And
Yeah.
no, Bay and Chilton. Sorry, Bay and Chilton in the Heritage Conservation District. Okay. Yeah, I love this, and I'd like to see dedications, heritage plaques on these trees. Thank you.
That would be great. I think the homeowners would love that too.
Thank
Or
you,
land in
Janice.
public space. Yeah.
Hmm.
Oh, that's great. And Robin, you were next on the list.
Yeah, we have a problem with plaques on trees. How would you put it on? But in Glenbrook, there was a heritage tree there. It was a double trunk, and it burnt down. They got hit by lightning. So we've already had a designation of a tree here in Hamilton. You've calling them monuments. Why did you choose that name?
That's a great question, and I'm glad that you asked it. One of my partners on the project is Paul General, and he is the former manager of the Eco Center on the Six Nations. He's retired now, but I contacted him when I started the project because my early research was showing a large number of remnant forest, part of the Carolinian life zone, growing in Six Nations. So I reached out to him to speak with him so that title came out of discussions with Paul. We were thinking about what their monumental character and what would key the public and people generally into the idea that they are signifiers of history and time and culture, as well as part of living systems. That's where the name came from.
But when you think of monuments, you think of a man planting it or building it. These are natural trees.
Yeah, that's the idea. So we're trying to reposition monuments as something that don't necessarily have to be in stone, but something that can be alive. There is a lot of work being done around the world right now. It's kind of just starting to emerge about the inherent rights of trees and trees as like the personification of trees and how to recognize that in terms of policy. So I think that starting to rethink the way that we see trees in public space is part of that. And I also think that there is a lot of space there for discussion about what does it mean to create a monument that is alive and that is moving and that is changing and that is not necessarily one that is just a stone figure or whatnot created by people.
You said you consulted with the natives on this. They're not too big on monuments.
Well, the person that I'm speaking with is just Paul General. So, and that's the word that he chose.
Now, through the chair again, I have a couple other things. With the LRT coming through King Street, not only are they demolishing all of the buildings, but they're going to be cutting down over 1,000 of the canopy trees in on King Street. Have you checked those to see if there's any heritage trees there?
There aren't very many heritage trees in downtown Hamilton, unfortunately. There are more than one would think, but Hamilton, the downtown core has a longer history of farming, and many of the oldest trees in the city were cut down to make way for agriculture. There are some that are on King Street, not 100, but there are a few, and they may be in the path of the LRT. Yes.
So we have the possibility of losing heritage trees with the LRT.
I can't say that for sure at this stage in the research, but there are several heritage trees downtown. So, but I also want to make that a little clearer. Like my like this research project, the reason I'm doing it is because I think that cities can be built with natural systems, and I think that cities can still expand and do so in concert with trees and water systems that are at work in a place. I think it's just a matter of understanding where they are and building around them or building with them. So the intention for me behind this work is to make that clear so that those decisions can be made, like, with awareness of some of these really ancient parts of Hamilton's history and culture and ecology really are, and what they are doing right now, because we know that old trees, ancient trees, do extraordinary work in cities for mitigating climate, and we can't replace them, and they're free. So I think that there is a lot of value there, and it doesn't mean that it's a no to growth.
Well, thank you. The positive point there, through the chair again, is that in Oakville, they actually moved the road because of a heritage tree to go around it, like you just said. And we already have a designated a tree here in Hamilton, and it's in Waterdown, and it's not designated, but plaqued. And what it is at the Waterdown Legion, and it's a Vimy oak.
Yes, I know about this tree.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I also have planted a Vimy oak in the Hamilton Cemetery, just to let you know.
That's great. I can go find it and include it in the project too.
It's my living tombstone. Thank you. Sorry to take up too much time.
Thank you, Robin.
Thanks for your questions.
Okay. Do we have any other members that wish to ask a question? So I see Lynn and Graham. Go ahead, Lynn.
I wanted to say thank you for this presentation. I found it absolutely fascinating. The screens went through very quickly, and I was more interested in the trees that you found in Flamborough, above the escarpment, because there's some that I'm aware of that I couldn't tell if they were there or not. And Robin, that tree is a designated tree. It's not just clacked. Keep up the good work.
Thank you.
And Graham, go ahead.
I just wanted to thank you for the presentation. It was really well done. And like when I was fascinated at how many trees of a certain age were still around. It's one of those things even though I live on Hamilton Mountain, you don't realize how many are still here. And
Yeah.
Shadoke Park especially surprised me how many are still in that area. Because that has been developed and has been farmed. It has been new houses.
Yeah, they're mostly, it's really interesting in that area because most of them are hugging the escarpment. And it seems that there is a correlation between the escarpment, even above the escarpment, and healthy old trees. And they are scattered amongst residential properties. So it looks like when you start to see the pattern that the homes were built within an old forest, and part of the structure of the forest still exists.
Yeah, I help out on a little bit of history page, and if you actually look at pictures from the late 1800s or early 1900s, the escarpment was denuded. People taking down trees to use for firewood and stuff. It was quite shocking. These pictures.
I think actually that's a really good point because I think So most of the trees in that neighborhood are shagbark hickories, and they live the longest, and they have the longest, like the slowest growth span. So it seems like they may not have been taken down while the escarpment was taken down. So perhaps they were already on public property. I don't know, but I can. I think that's something I'm going to look into.
Yeah, or else it was on private property where they didn't allow it to come down.
Yeah.
Because the other stuff, like I said, along the escarpment, it was just anyone went down, cut down a tree, and let's get some firewood.
Yeah.
It's shocking though when you see those pictures.
Yeah, completely deforested.
Well, thank you once again.
You're welcome. Yeah, thank you.
Last call for anyone wishing to ask questions. If not, thank you again for the presentation. It really was fantastic, and congratulations on the work that's been done. If you have any information about the upcoming exhibits or anything that's the tours, if you can send that to Lorraine, she can distribute that to the committee so everybody can
that would
learn
be
a little bit more.
Okay, great. And thank you very much for your time and for having me. It's great meeting all of you.
Great, thank you. May I have a motion to receive the delegation and the presentation?
I see Councillor Pearson and I see Graham.
And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. We are now going to move on to item 10.1, and this is the recommendation to designate 56 York Boulevard in Hamilton, which is the Copley commercial building and block under Part 4 of the Ontario Heritage Act, PED 22108 in Ward 2. So we have Ken here who's going to speak to the report. Welcome, Ken.
Sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, no problem.
I was not expecting to speak to this report. It's my understanding through Stacy that we have a presentation. Is that correct, Stacy?
Through you, Madam Chair. Yes, we do have Jacqueline as well as Amy, and they're from ARA. So they will be speaking, providing a presentation of their findings. This was a file with Amber Knowles, so there is a little bit of a transition here, but we do have Jacqueline and Amy who have been on the project since the beginning. So I will hand it over to them.
Great. Welcome, Amy and Jacqueline.
Thank you so much for having us, and through you, Madam Chair and committee members. I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. While I do this, I will just note that our primary goal today is to answer questions that the committee members may have, and I'm sure that everyone is familiar with this wonderful building we're about to speak to. And so I'm just going to share this. And hoping everyone can see the presentation. I can't see you, so you'll have to just vocally let me know if you can't.
Amy, we can see it clearly. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So yes, thank you, everyone. We're here to talk about 56 York Boulevard, also known as the Copley Building. Our team was brought on to this task in December, and this is because the property was currently protected with a notice of intention to designate issued in 1979 under Part 4 of the Act. However, amendments that have been made since then, since 2009, and on account of the fact that the notice of intention to designate didn't carry through the full planning process and get officially designated, we were brought in to revisit this. And sorry, something popped up there. And so what we've done is we've re-examined the property using today's current practices and taking into consideration some of the legal frameworks brought through Bill 108 to make sure that it is fully in the proper format that it's expected in these days. So we prepared a draft cultural heritage assessment, and we presented it to the Inventory and Research Working Group in March of this year. There were additional recommendations that were brought forward, and we revised the report. And as I'm sure you've all read, it was attached to this agenda. So I'm just going to walk through really quickly some of the highlights from the report. So no surprise here, the building met several criteria through Ontario Regulation 906 in all three of the categories, which include the physical design value, historic and associative value, and contextual value. We also used the City of Hamilton's framework for evaluating the buildings, and it was found to meet 10 of the criteria there for having cultural heritage value or interest. This is just an overview of the results from that particular evaluation. Both the stone building and the brick building were considered. So I'm going to start with the stone building. It was a representative example of a 19th century Renaissance revival commercial building designed with a high degree of craftsmanship. Also, the building has numerous historic associations with it, with the textile industry, and it's a landmark prominently placed at the intersection of York Boulevard and McNabb Street. So with Bill 101 changes, one of the issues that is brought forward is the need to show how the statement of value and those pieces of value reflect in the building design. So as part of our new process moving forward, we create these maps that really highlight where those attributes are, where the physical pieces that represent the overall value can be found and located. So this is one of the images we have to show that. And each one of these colors reflects one of the heritage attributes that were identified there. So really nice visual to just clearly see, you know, when we say the projecting string course, you can see it right there. It's along between the first and second floor there. When we get to the back part of the building, this is the brick section of it. It also met all three criteria as well, as a representative example of a 20th century Edwardian classicism commercial building. Also, lots of historic associations there, and also a landmark being located and adjacent, you know, connected to the stone portion. Again, I'm going to show you the visual that really highlight those heritage attributes that were identified for this front-facing facade part, or sorry, the facade part of the building. And again, they're just outlined in different colors to really show what we're talking about when it comes to heritage attributes. And this is really important moving forward to have these really clear understandings of if we're going to change a heritage attribute, you know, this visual helps to be used in future planning processes to say, okay, yes, this is the piece they're going to do. This is clearly identified as an attribute. Let's use that information and go through the proper planning processes. Also included in here were some of the interior elements that were brought forward in conversations with this working group. I think staff might be able to speak to this a little bit more or if needed, but certainly these were the ones that we had originally come up with, and most of them are reflected in the actual notice of intention to designate. If there's any questions, my colleague and I, Jackie, is here as well with me, and we are happy to answer any of those. Stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone again. There we go.
Thank you, Amy. Do we have any questions of our speaker? No question. Go ahead, Lynn.
It's not really a question. It's just a point, and I don't know if this is from Lorraine or the document, but the appendices A, B, C, D, E, when you bring them up, the title of the document is 2600 Highway 56 Binbrook, not Copley Building.
Oh, that's a new one. Thank you very much, Lynn. I will make
really
sure
old.
that I will make sure that the correct appendices are uploaded to the document. My apologies to the committee.
No, the appendices are right. It's just that the title.
Oh, the header?
Yeah.
Okay, got it. We'll make that change. Thank you very much for noticing.
Thank you, Lynn. And Janice, do you have questions or comments?
Am I mute?
We can hear you. We're good. Oh, now you're muted.
Now you're mute.
was right the first time I pressed the button. Yes, through the chair. What is the timeline for moving forward with the designation? Where are we with this? Since you've
Yep, through you, Madam Chair. From a staff perspective, this is the next step. So once we get HMHC's either support or I'm going to just go with the support of HMHC, then the report then proceeds forward with the recommendations to Planning Committee and then to Council for approval, and then we issue the notice from there.
okay, so it's really moving quickly then through the chair.
Oh, Ken, I think you have a comment.
I was just going to point out and add to Stacey's that we are under a deadline to get this approved by July 1st to meet certain requirements under Bill 108. So yes, it will be designated before the end of June, the way we're going, if this is approved today.
Thank you.
Chuck, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Amy. Amy, we often do 906 analysis of buildings here, and it seems like the area we most get caught up in or have the most discussion is on whether a building's a landmark or not, or at least it seems that way anyway. You mentioned in your presentation that the Copley, both the stone building and the brick building, are landmarks. I agree with that, first of all, but I'm hoping you can clarify why you believe it's a landmark. Why you believe both of them are landmarks, and in particular, why you believe the brick building is a landmark as well as the stone building.
Okay, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you for the question. So we had a lot of discussion as a team of if this building was a landmark or not. And often in heritage, it's, we are consultants, we are not Hamiltonians. So, the value that's bestowed on a building really comes through the community and how they place the value on. So based on the discussion with the working group, that reinforced the idea that they believed it to be a landmark. There are
She's frozen.
belongs to is bestows upon it. So that is.
Oh.
Amy, if you can hear me, it appears that your audio is being cut off. So if you can we can see you, but can you shut off your video, because oftentimes that makes your connection to our meeting a little better. We don't want to miss a word that you're saying.
No problem. Did you hear? Would you like me just to reiterate what I just said?
Yes, please.
Okay. So we, as a team, had a discussion on landmarks and if this building warranted that. And through discussion with the community, these are often spaces where we turn to the community and say, do you feel that it's a landmark? Because value is the undertones of value should be bestowed on how the community values that particular building. So through discussions with the working group, there was strong sentiments that it was a landmark. And often location on corner lots, having the two sides and the two access points from the public views also reinforces status as a landmark. So we ticked that box on a reflection of how the community expressed that to us as being a landmark.
That's great. Chuck, was there any other question that you?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Could I just clarify, if it's possible, Amy, on why the brick building is the same then, in terms of being a landmark, or are there different aspects to it in terms of being a landmark, if you don't mind?
Jesus.
I think I can jump in here just in terms of the brick building being a landmark. In our report, we do say that while it is attached to the stone building, which is noted as a landmark, the brick building itself is away from the corner and it doesn't have the same visual prominence as the stone structure. So we did not include that as part of the landmark status in the 906 table.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Amy. So I think we can move on now. If I can have a mover and a seconder to receive the presentation.
I see Tim and I see Karen.
Okay. And as we move to receive the presentation, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none. Thank you, Amy and Jackie, for that presentation. That was great. Clarified some questions that we had. So before we move on with our discussion in regards to the actual report, may I have a mover and a seconder to put the recommendations on the floor?
I see Graham and I see Lynn.
Okay, so the recommendations in the report, I'll just briefly read them, but you have them before you. So that the City of Hamilton withdraw the 1979 Notice of Intention to Designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act for the property at 56 York Boulevard, Hamilton, which is the Copley commercial block. Part B is that the City Council state its intention to designate under Part 4, Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, the property of 56 York Boulevard, Hamilton, Copley Commercial Block, in accordance with the Statement of Cultural Heritage Value or Interest and description of the heritage attributes of 56 York Boulevard, Hamilton, attached as Appendix B to this report, PED 22108. And then finally, that the clerk be directed to give notice of intention to designate the property at 56 York Boulevard, Hamilton, as a property of cultural heritage value or interest in accordance with the requirements of Section 29 of the Ontario Heritage Act, subject to the clarifications for objections that are listed. So, do we have any discussion in regards to the recommendations before us? If none, we have our mover and our seconder, so we will move to vote. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Thank you, everyone. And that'll be very good to see the Copley building finally wrapped up and resolved. Robin, I understand that you wish to introduce a motion regarding the property as we're just finalizing things.
My bad.
Okay, go ahead, Robin. You had you wanted to introduce a motion?
I've logged in twice, so you're going to have I got to get out and go in.
Well, I think Lorraine can mute one of.
Robin, I'll kick one of you out.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We've had a few technical difficulties today.
Someone's are.
Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. Okay, I'm back. You still have it. 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 Still have it.
This is the second one. Oh, there we are. Okay. Hopefully I expelled the right one. No, I picked the wrong one.
Robin, can you talk to your other
And
Hello?
connection? Oh, we can hear you. We just can't see you at the moment. So go ahead. You had a recommendation that you wanted to put forward as a motion.
It was just yes, it was a recommendation, but through the what Ken Coit said there about the time frame, I don't think we have time to actually do what I propose. This would be a perfect opportunity for streamlining the designation as just not a designation, but as a designation for the placking, the reviews, the permit reviews. That's what I meant, and the writing of the plaque, putting it all together as a full meal deal instead of just a designation. And that way you get all the presentations and all the sign-offs done at once. And this would be our guinea pig for getting back into a designation plaquing situation. And I'd like to talk to Ken about it to finalize this in the sense that we can now have a plaque written, a plaque produced, a plaque going through the permit review, a plaque going onto the building, and then a ceremony for an unveiling. That's the vision of what we should be doing. And because we don't have any money for plaquing, or we don't have this kind of organization to get it done, this would have been a perfect opportunity to do this and fill in that void and have it a fait accompli at the end of the designation when the council votes it through. If July 1st is the deadline, and I believe because that's when the government gave a year for the catch up of a designation of the old Heritage Act. So the idea is that I don't think we have time to do it right this time, and the idea that we do not have a budget for the plaque, I was willing to push this as fast as possible by paying for the plaque myself. And that way we eliminate one discussion of saying, oh, we can't do it because there's no money. I think it's important that we get back on track with plaquing designated properties with the heritage plaques that have been used for a long time. And if we miss the opportunity with the Copley, we can maybe do it in tandem to the July 1st deadline with the TSA, new owners, and get that written off and get it to the permit review. I believe this could be a tandem situation to get to the point, instead of dealing with the designation all by itself and then the plaquing situation by itself, which we've done forever. If we put the two together, then it is a done deal. So I don't think we have the time to do this, as long as Ken can maybe comment on that.
Thank you, Robin. Ken, can you provide some clarification?
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, Robin's correct. Based on our discussion at the last Education and Communication Subcommittee, there would not be time to do this, and we wouldn't want to hold up the designation. If we miss the deadline, the building would lose its heritage protection. And of course, we have a very friendly owner and developer who's very interested in the building. So I'm happy to have offline conversations with them about how to recognize the building going forward. And Robin, as per our last Education and Communication Subcommittee meeting, I think we have some work to do to, as you say, talk about how we can make this designation plaque process work better going forward, and identify budget and all those other good things, and pick a good pilot project for doing that. Whether it be this or another upcoming designation would be up to that committee and us to figure out going forward. But I think we have a little more homework, and we won't be able to get any of the legal agreements and all that stuff done in time for this one. That being said, I am willing to have a conversation with the developer as they go through site plan and other processes of how they are looking to recognize or share the heritage of the building on their private property, of course.
Thank you, Ken. All right. We have, so Karen had asked to speak. So Robin, before we have a follow-up question from you, Karen, did you have a comment?
Yes, thank you. I've turned my camera off as per your advice. So two things. I've just been, okay. Robin, thank you so much for offering to pay for this. That is really amazing. The plaquing is so important, and it's, you seem to understand it more than almost anybody. But the second point I'd like to say is that I've been traveling around the US, and so many buildings, so many places have plaques, and I stop and read essentially every one, and I learned so much. And it's so important, if you want someone to understand your history, it's so important to have these things appropriately plaqued. So I find them incredibly valuable. I find them in Canada as well, but you know, I've been here for a week or two now, so I just wanted to say that when we get this Copley building plaqued, it's going to be just the icing on the cake. So can't wait to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Karen. And so Robin, did you have a follow-up?
Just through you again, and for Ken's benefit, is that I wrote a letter to the Municipal Heritage Committee I also took photographs of locations where it is, and I wrote the plaque for this. If we could get it through as fast as possible, but I think, like Ken said, we should take that back to the Education Committee and get it done. And thank you very much, Karen, for your nice words there for me. But I've been dealing with this. Is my first rodeo, so I've been dealing with this for about 20 years, and I think it's really important that, like you say, that how can you get the education out there if you don't have the street people stopping and reading it? They're going by from one place to another and take a look at a plaque and learn something. Thank you.
And just to follow up, Robin, on your comment about correspondence, a member of the committee can't write correspondence to the committee, so that's why we had the opportunity for you to discuss. So if members are wondering why that wasn't forwarded on, this meeting is the opportunity for those comments and points of view to be expressed. So that's why that wasn't forwarded on. Okay. So if there's nothing more on that item, we'll move on to 10.2. So 10.2 is our heritage permit application, HP 2022-007, Part 5 of the Ontario Heritage Act, to permit the demolition of the existing dwelling and garage at 940 Beach Boulevard in Hamilton, Ward 5. So we have Chloe Richer here is to speak on the report. Hi, Chloe. Oh, actually, Lorraine, is Chloe on the call?
Yes, she is, Madam Chair. But
you, Madam Chair, my video does not appear to be working.
That's fine, Chloe. We can hear you clearly.
Okay, I'll just stop the video. So just to clarify, we're not doing a staff presentation for this one. I'm here to answer any questions, and we also have the agent and the owners available to answer questions as well.
Okay, that sounds good. So I guess maybe then before we begin the discussion, may I have a mover and a seconder to put the recommendations on the floor?
I see Tim and I see Lynn.
Okay. So do we have, if people could let us know if you have any questions or comments, whether it's for staff or it's for the owner applicant that's joining us today. I'm not seeing anyone or any questions. So before us, we have the recommendations, and I'll just quickly read those. So that Heritage Permit Application HP 2022-007 for the demolition of Part 5 designated existing dwelling and attached garage for lands located at 940 Beach Boulevard under Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act be approved with the following conditions. Implementation of the demolition of the dwelling and attached garage in accordance with this approval shall be completed no later than April 30th, 2024. If the alterations are not completed by April 30th, 2024, then this approval expires as of that date, and no alteration shall be undertaken without a new approval issued by the City of Hamilton. And that appropriate notice of council decision be served on the owner of 940 Beach Boulevard, Hamilton, and the Ontario Heritage Trust as required under Section 42 of the Ontario Heritage Act. So those are our recommendations before us. If there's no discussion, then, and we have our mover and seconder, we need to move to vote on this item. As we move to vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, then this item is carried. All right. Thank you, everyone. And we will move on to our general information and other business. So at this time, we're going to be discussing our list of buildings and landscapes. So if you could just through the chat, let Lorraine know who would like to speak to their properties. And then we'll address any additions to the list as we go through our list of members.
I'm just going to put my hand up here for Gage Park.
Okay. So first, so here we've got the list here. Graham, go ahead.
Okay, all my actual buildings I'm looking at right now are doing quite well. But as I mentioned before the meeting started, I was coming home from Haldimand County yesterday, and I noticed that 2235 Upper James Kinburn Cottage is now boarded up, which is a shame. It's a beautiful cottage with a Belvedere on top. It was up for, I recommended it for designation, never got through, unfortunately, but it is on the registry. So I think it should be added to the watch list to see what's going to happen with this building. I would think it would be a real shame if we were to lose it, like to protect it somehow.
Madam Chair, if I may interrupt for just a moment.
Absolutely.
Brian, could you repeat the address, please? And also let me know which list you would like, you are proposing?
Okay. So it's 2235 Upper James Street.
Thank you.
And I like to put it at red for as in danger, because now that it's boarded up and unoccupied.
Thank you very much. We'll need a seconder for that, Madam Chair.
I see Robin has his hand up. Okay. And as we move to vote, is there anyone opposed to adding that property? And Graham, you're okay with monitoring that one as an additional property?
Okay. Yes.
All right.
I second.
So Lynn, we have you next on our list. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to add 283 Brock Road in Greensville to the yellow list. This is the former West Flamborough Township Hall. It is a designated building, but it was unoccupied during COVID. And when the Optimist Club got access, they reached out to the Flamborough Archives and a couple of other local historical societies because there is substantial water damage to the building. There are actual holes in the roof. It has been brought to the attention of the heritage planners and to Ken, and I understand that there are meetings with facilities, but I would just like to put it on my watch list.
Okay. Ken, did you have any comments?
No, through you, Madam Chair, just to confirm what Lynn said, we have been talking to facilities and have expressed our concerns that emergency repairs be undertaken immediately.
Yeah, that's good.
Madam Chair, if I may interrupt again, it's Lorraine from the clerk's office. We just need a seconder for that.
So Graham. Yep. And is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, so we'll add that property to our list. Lynn, did you have any other? No. Robin, you're next.
Thank you, Chair. Century Manor at the last meeting, or at the meeting that we had with Sandy Shaw and the government, the idea was that the same thing there is happening with the Copley building, where the designation, the old designation, can be rewritten so that when the property is sold, it will fall into the new Heritage Act and designation. So I'd like to ask Ken again where that stands with the same thing as the Copley building.
Through you, Madam Chair, discussions continue with IO. It's our understanding schedule-wise that we have time this fall to be preparing a detailed designation similar, using the background information they have provided, similar to Copley, that we will be able to approve as soon as the building has changed hands, the land has changed hands, as per your direction at the last Heritage Committee meeting.
Just a clarification, Ken, through you, Chair. If we have a deadline for the Copley building with the new designation for July 1st, why do we not have that same deadline for Century Manor?
I do not know. That would be a good question for Stacy or Alyssa.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair. So the difference is that Century Manor is already protected under a designation bylaw that is full and in force. Right. The Copley building was a notice of intention to designate that still holds the same similar protection, but with Bill 108 changes, they put in a deadline of July 1st, 2022 to wrap up all incomplete notice of intentions to designate. Thank you.
My property is Akmar. It was open for doors open for only one day, which was a Saturday. And on that day, nearly 1,000 people went through the building. So that was a fabulous day for Akmar Heritage in the city. And also, for the first time, the gatehouse was included into the presentation in Akmar. And the Friends of Akmar had produced QR codes and had put the codes on every one of the rooms, so a smartphone could be used to read and learn the history and see the photographs. And that was a big step forward into the 20th century for Akmar. Also, the Beach Lighthouse and Cottage it was open for doors open, but not open for doors open. It was a presentation on the side of the Keeper's Cottage, and they had 631 people come in. The main discussion was the moving of the lighthouse, and there was more people for moving it than against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Robin. Janice, you're next on the list.
Hello, can you hear me? Thank you. Through the chair, Robin, just a little correction on your numbers. I've got all the numbers for the doors open, and a Saturday and Sunday were equally busy, over 600. And I won't talk about doors open at this point in time, but maybe at the end I'll get a little opportunity to talk about that. Yes, I have two issues. I'm at 13.1A, and it's number 7. I didn't get time to write this on, but this is one of mine, James Street Baptist. And Ken, through the chair, I'd probably like to direct this to you. And the property has looked like this ever since it was demolished, and the hoarding is just it needs to be looked after. I think it is a disgraceful site on a major thoroughfare, James Street South, especially when we've got a historic, a designated church across the road, nationally designated. And then we've got Leuna, who's building a beautiful building across the road. And I don't know how to get this property cleaned up, but right now, I don't even know how much longer it's going to sit. It has been like this since 2017. We are now 2022. So I really hope that something can be done to move this fella forward and to clean up that spot so it is at least presentable. And then lastly, through the chair, Television City. And again, maybe this goes to you, Ken. I don't know if Graham reported this. I could not make the last meeting, but there is a window that is boarded up that I guess has recently been broken, and that building, 163 Jackson Street West, is designated. So is it to stay like that until what is it, Television City starts developing, or is that window going to be replaced? Thank you. Those are my comments.
Through you, Madam Chair, I can't speak to, we can definitely speak to property standards and the developer about the state of the former James Street Baptist. In speaking to Steve earlier today, it's my understanding that they are still planning to move forward. In terms of, I guess it's Pinehurst, we will, I'm not expecting that window will be replaced now. It'll probably be replaced during the construction of the building. And we'll make sure we catch that as approvals and site plan and things go forward.
Thank you.
Steve, did you want to provide extra comment or clarification?
No, I just was making myself available for any questions. I would indicate the owners, through Madam Chairman, Steve Robichaud, Director of Planning and Chief Planner, the owners of the Connolly have recently been in contact with city staff to confirm the status of their building permits, and with the intent of moving forward with that project in Q3, Q4 of this year, starting to re-engage with moving that forward now that we are hopefully on the other side of the COVID pandemic. And so we will be following up with them to reconfirm, because they did reach out to staff just to confirm all of their permits as they start to move forward. So we will reach out to them just to confirm if they have information on the timing. And further on what Mr. Coit said, we will follow up with the owner of Television City about that window. I assume it must have been damaged and they simply had to secure the building, but we will follow up. They do have an active site plan and they are actively marketing and selling that, marketing and sales on that project. So I assume they are looking to move forward with it, but we can see, but remind them of their obligations in terms under the heritage designation and the timing of that window replacement. But I do anticipate, yeah, it was an emergency measure, and it was simply to secure the building, and I guess that was part of that was the first priority, to ensure that no further damage or destruction happened to that heritage resource. Thank you.
Thank you both for clarifying. Thank you, Janice, for bringing those forward. I think there's a rash of window breakings going on across the city. You're noticing more and more panels being put up by local companies that need to do replacements. So, Chuck, you're next on our list.
Thanks, Madam Chair. And this is my update is on the 13-1 X or 10. That's the 398 Wilson Street, and it's for the benefit of the citizen members here, as opposed to city staff who I think are up to speed on this. This is the Mar Filippo building in Ancaster. So on May the 3rd, Planning Committee considered the revised application from the applicant and did not support going ahead with it for a variety of reasons. And City Council on the 11th of May supported the Planning Committee. So I guess there's the next steps. I'm not sure what the next steps are. There's certainly rumors that it could go to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but I know many of the citizen members were involved in this last year, whether it was on this committee or heritage permit review. But at this point, you know, there's a bit of an impasse right now with respect to the building. I'm sure there's still going to be lots happening going forward and more to report in the future on this. The building itself is great, as it has been for 170 years. It's still in its lonely, area by itself, sitting alone there. But other than that, the stuff more that's swirling about it is, the next steps. And that's it for today.
Thank you, Chuck. Did staff want to provide any further comment or feedback on? No? Okay. All right. And Tim. So Tim's been having some technical difficulties today. Tim, can you hear us? Oh, there you go. Okay. We see you.
Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Seeing here is a little tough here. I don't know, in our bubble of, self-righteous anger down here in the Beasley neighborhood, I think sometimes affects the stuff coming through. I got just two quick ones. No real change at the knitting mill. I actually did speak directly with the owner, Harry Stinson, and they did do some repairs and some securing of the guillotines that were shooting off the roof. So that was a marked improvement if the bar is low. So that's good. And secondly, a lot of us are familiar because we went through the permit review, but I've been watching the Firth building. It's kind of a tale of two difference. As the mill collapses, the Firth is kind of rising from the ashes, and I'm really excited to see the direction that they're going forward there. So that was it for my two updates. And just one final thing I want to say. I volunteered on the weekend at Doors Open, and what a wonderful operation that was, and a real shout out to all the organizers and Janice for the endless energy. How that's even possible. You have that much energy to run. That was fantastic. But we got to see lots of
thank you, Tim.
Sites that you don't normally get to see. So that was great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Tim. And David, we have you next on the list.
Yes, can you hear me all right, the chair?
Yeah, we can hear you.
The walkways in Gage Park are being prepared for paving. They look more like highways than walkways. A linear measurement shows that as much as 3 acres of the park will be paved in toxic tar. The Friends of Gage Park and the Dunnington Grubb Foundation is all for accessibility. One, however, only has to go to 50 Point to see what environmental accessibility looks like. Going back to the last term of council, the city moved to tear out a section of the formal gardens for a firefighter monument. Gage Park, at that time, had been on the heritage permit list to be designated for some time. I said then, let's get Gage Park designated before something else comes along and does something to destroy this landscape. For those on the committee at that time, they would know that I used a little stronger language than that. We were told at that time that Gage Park was very next on to be designated and mostly completed by year end. Well, here we are again years later with no designation and no real protection for the park. Paving of 3 acres of a 100-year-old city beautiful movement park designed by Britain and Canada's first female landscape architect Laurie Dunnington is anything but acceptable. It completely flies in the face of the ESG, which is the economic and social governance requirements. The intention to remove their intention is it's actually a federal organization led by Art Carney, and the intention is to remove all oil-based products from the environment as soon as possible. You'll be hearing a lot more of this not too far down the line. The new battery plant, the electric car plant, and clean steel upgrades to Dofasco are some examples. Now, I have said all this to say that it pains me greatly that after working for 15 years to bring the Dunnington Grubb Foundation to Hamilton to utilize its funds locally, the foundation has decided to move its funds and energies outside of Hamilton. Being the president of the foundation, I have decided to focus my energy and time in the area of support of heritage landscapes and environmental sustainability. Therefore, after this meeting, I will be following the foundation and will be stepping off the committee. Steve Wiggin is on the permit review committee and will represent St. Clair Boulevard. I wish the committee the best of luck, and it has just been a great pleasure working with everyone, and I know everyone is so dedicated. It does pain me to do this, but I think maybe it's best all the way around. Thank you, Madam Chair.
David, that saddens me that you're resigning from the committee, but I appreciate your thoughts and opinions on that. So I think Lorraine's going to be reaching out to you to speak with you further and work with you on that. I say it's a bit of a shock. I did not know that was what you were going to be talking about today. So I say you were a valued part of our committee. So it's going to be a loss to us and a loss to the heritage community.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I thank you because I know how hard you worked. We've worked together quite often, and I certainly know how hard everyone works on this committee. So it is difficult for me to do this, but it just seems that the time has come for me to move along.
Well, again, we certainly will miss you on the committee, but respect all that you've done and you know your viewpoint and opinion on especially the properties that you've championed, Gage Park and St. Clair Boulevard. So, well,
Just
thank you,
one
David.
thing.
For Go ahead, Janice.
Yeah, I just want to say one thing, David. I truly can feel your pain about the 3 acres of the walkway, because when I heard that they were going to pave it over, I really thought in this day and age there are other ways for accessibility. So I think that is a shame. And I know I fought that very thing in the Durand Park. And I guess because our park is so small, I won that battle, because I think Duranders would have hung me up if I'd paved over our little bit of paradise. So good luck in your next endeavors.
Thank you, Janice.
Okay. On that note, do we have any other members that wish to speak? If not, may I have a mover and a seconder to receive the updates?
Madam Chair, I believe that Ken Coit wishes to speak at the moment.
Okay, go ahead.
Through you, Madam Chair, I'm happy. I just wanted to give a quick staff update. I can at an appropriate time when you've finished with receiving this information.
Okay. So do you have a mover and a seconder, Lorraine, on your list?
Yes, I do. I have Graham Carroll and I have Karen Burke. And if I may add at this time, given David's news, I would also like to have a quick motion by this committee just to receive Mr. Whelan's resignation from the committee today.
Okay. So we'll start with receiving the updates. So you have a mover and a seconder. And as we vote, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And then in regards to David's resignation, do we have a mover and a seconder to receive that?
I see Chuck. And I see Graham. Thank you very much.
Okay. And as we move to receive that notice, is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. And as we move on, we are now just at our so other business. Ken, would you like to make your statements?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Through you, Madam Chair, on behalf of staff, thank you, David, for all that you've done over the years. I know I'm new to this section, but I do remember your work and have interacted with you on various aspects of city stuff over the years. So thank you for all your work. And I just want to inform the committee that unfortunately Amber Knowles has left the city. She's moved on to a job with Infrastructure Ontario. So I would just like to inform the committee we are down one and thank Amber for all her work. And note that there's a call out for a new heritage planner at the city. So if you know anyone good, please send them my way right away. Hopefully we'll be in a back up to full staff in a couple of weeks. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Well, I know that's a loss, Ken, for being down a planner. So hopefully that someone is found soon, so staff can get back to their regular work. And I know that's when you need someone, and that's it's an important time. There's lots of work to get done. So hopefully that transition will happen soon. Other business, I just want to make comment about Doors Open, and this will probably fall into Janice's. It was a fantastic weekend. Was at the Lister Block for a bit. We set up our table for Municipal Heritage Committee. We had a couple of great volunteers that had helped throughout the day. And Janice, I know, had spoken with a lot of people that had come through the Lister Block, and so and hearing very positive feedback from everybody. So just wanted to congratulate Janice and the team for that put together Doors Open. It was something that they did in very short order and was able to create a fantastic event. And thank you to all the members. I know you were broadcast all over the city at various locations. So I know it really helped Janice to have everyone's support and help where they could too on the site. So it was a great event, Janice. So I want to congratulate you. So is there anything that you wanted to say about that? I know that you wanted to say something.
Okay, yes. Thank you very much, Alyssa. And of course, thank you, Tim. I don't know if you heard that. It was a good event, and the weather cooperated, and we had thousands of visitors into Hamilton, and heritage is alive and well. The compliments were just wonderful. Our guests were complimenting the site hosts. They were complimenting the volunteers, and I only I think out of over 50 volunteers I had at the various sites, only 2 did not show up, and they did not show up for very good reasons. And that just made my day, because I had no idea how many people I might need to fill in, and unfortunately, I didn't have fill-in, so that was very difficult. But something again, I'd like to just share some numbers with you, just a few. But Belfour Shadok was the #1 spot in the city. They were on a day and a half, not 2 full days, and they had over 1,900 visitors through that place. And the folks there did a wonderful job with the displays, and lots of great comments about that. One thing that I would like to say is that the city museums this time around, they did a couple things that were really new. One, they did reservations, and 2, they were not open both days. And this was really disappointing to our visitors. So I'm hoping I can get to the people in the city and encourage them next year to make sure we're up for 2 days. Other than that, it was done over 2.5 months. It took me almost a week to recuperate, and my energy level, you talk about energy, I had the energy then, but I totally crashed. So I'm feeling really good right now. So it was just a week recovery. I have no idea who will be doing it next year, but it will be ACO, but it's not going to be me. I'm going to be a volunteer at a site and have fun. So thank you to all of you on this team that volunteered, and Lister was fun. Shout out to Ken Coit, who did tours for 2 days, and folks loved his tours. Shout out to our general manager. I roped Jason Thorne into being a tour guide at Bridgeworks, and to my good friend Graham, I roped him into the afternoon session at Bridgeworks because I didn't have the tour site people to tell the history of that place, because it is an event place, and those people, they're not getting home till 2 and 3 in the morning after their concerts. So thanks again to everybody. Robin, who did great cemetery. I could go on and on. You will get your thank yous personally from the ACO and myself. So I'm glad it's done. Summer is here. Good times roll.
Now you can jump onto your next project, Janice. All right. Is there any other new business that we'd like to address? So I see Robin. Is there anyone else? Go ahead, Robin. Go ahead, Robin, if you ever.
Through the chair, and I want to say it was a great weekend too. It was the launch of the cemetery tours for both days. Normally, I only do Saturdays, but I did Sunday for Mother's Day, and we had 73 people come out on Sunday. That not a record, but at the same time, I do it every Saturday. They could have gone somewhere else, and they came to me, and it was a great weekend. People remembered coming out and doing stuff for, and I recommended going to Belfour and Alkmaar. So maybe that 1900 was one of the ones that came to the cemetery. That's very good. Yeah, I've just a clarification there is that Alkmaar had nearly 1,000 people come through on Saturday only. They were only open on Saturday. And I think that was one of the downfalls of, like you say, is that it should have been 2 days for to be open. The second day was outside only, and I don't know what happened and who did anything there. And the Lighthouse, they had 631 people come in for both days. So that's incredible stuff. And what I did at the cemetery tours, because it was a new launch after 2.5 years of pandemic, that I just wanted to announce that I also got my second volume of the cemetery tours, the book, volume 2. And that came Friday. I was on the edge of my seat waiting for it, and I launched it on Saturday. So I now have volume 1 and volume 2. The books are available from me. So thank you. Shameless plug.
Thank you, Robin. Is there any other new business? If not, we'll move to make our motion to adjourn. Just as an update, our next meeting is tentatively scheduled for June 10th at 9:30. I think Lorraine would like to make an update. Go ahead, Lorraine.
Hello, everyone. It's Lorraine Kohler from the clerk's office. As you may be aware, things are changing quickly here at clerk's office with our virtual meetings. I will have more information for you as soon as I have it. We are just working out various details. For now, what I can tell you is that council itself is going to be moving towards a hybrid meeting model, which will allow people to either attend virtually or in person. So we are continuing to work out the details for all our subcommittees and our advisory committees and the other standing committees, and I will get back to you. And yes, that date is at this time tentative for June 10th, but I will work to schedule it as quickly as possible.
Thank you, Lorraine. And I think just before we go, once again, David, thank you for your years of service on the Municipal Heritage Committee. It's absolutely a shame to see you go, but understandable. But I want you to know that we appreciate everything that you've done.
Thank you for putting up with me.
Not at all. It's not putting up with you. We appreciate everything that you've done for the committee. So it's been some challenging years with COVID and online.
I'm just going to say to Karen that we stay at the Sandpiper on Fort Myers Beach. The yellow building down there.
I believe Ken quite wished to speak. I may be incorrect about that.
Ken, did you have a comment?
Through you, Madam Chair. No, I was just trying to figure out how to clap in WebEx. My apologies.
I was doing the same.
That's great. All right. Well, everyone, we need a motion to adjourn for today. Do you have a mover and a seconder?
I see Councillor Pearson, and I see David.
David. Is there anyone opposed? Seeing none, that item is carried. Thank you, everyone. Karen, enjoy the rest of your vacation that you have.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we'll see everybody in June.
Okay, thank you.